Welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame, created and produced by educator and author Mark Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring. Mark will be joined by Susan Brender, CEO and host of The Susan Brender Show. The purpose of this program is to offer our listeners a variety of stories dealing with many interesting topics surrounding education. It is our hope that students and parents alike will benefit from the wide range of topics, including study skills, test prep, anti-bullying, sports, music, and more. We hope you enjoy our show, Lighting the Educational Flame.
Hello and welcome to the video podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Grade Success Education. I am Mark Hoberman and my co-host is Susan Brender. Hello again, Susan.
Good to see you there, Mark. It's so amazing that we have this great guest coming up.
Oh, we have a special person today whose father was a major part of my life. Our guest today is Linda Jones, daughter of cartoon icon and Academy Award winner, Chuck Jones. Linda, thanks for being here. Welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, what a pleasure. And Linda, can you tell us a little bit about your background and the deep connection that you shared with your father and still share to this day?
Well, first of all, I'm his daughter. That started the connection.
Yes.
And as far as I know, I'm his only daughter.
Okay.
And
let's keep it that way.
We will keep it that way.
Yes.
And I had a wonderful, wonderful relationship with him from the very beginning. He wanted a daughter, and he got one, and we hit it off from the very beginning. So when I got old enough to be involved in his work world, I spent some time in the 60s and 70s working in his office when he was doing the Kipling series and the cricket series, which we can talk about again if you like. So I was working there in what was called his studio Tower 12. So he had left Warner Brothers by that time, and because I was then in my 20s, and so I worked with him doing research, and I was one of the few people who could read his handwriting, so I did a lot of transcription of notes that he had made on little pieces of paper. They didn't have Post-it notes in those days, so he would just rip up pieces of paper and write little things on it, and then throw them in a box, and then he'd give me the box and say, here, type these. So I had the great privilege of kind of getting into his other mind, not just his relationship with me as his daughter, but into the things he was thinking about on a daily basis. So that was wonderful. Skipping ahead a bit, during that time I had 3 children, and I was somewhat involved with that. And then later on, he asked me to be involved with a project that was Chris Columbus, who, not that Chris Columbus.
Not dating back to the time.
No, not the 15th century.
Yeah, even
Chris
Chuck
Columbus.
Jones wasn't around then.
No. But Chris Columbus wanted someone to do a little cartoon short for a picture he was planning to do called Mrs. Doubtfire. And so Chuck said, sure, I'll do it. And later he told me he wasn't sure, he should have said yes. But because it meant inventing 2 new characters, several new characters that, and he did, but he told Chris Columbus, he said, I'd like to have my daughter be the producer. And he said, I don't care who you have a producer. And by that time, I had been selling animation art for several years. We started a business. I started the business, and my father worked for me. drawing pictures and drawing limited editions for me and doing wonderful. He signed a lot of things. He did a lot of designing, and of course he also loved appearing at galleries. And so we traveled around all over the country, appearing at galleries where we sold the art.
Linda,
So I had been,
question.
yeah,
Can I
sure.
stop you for a second? Because I have a
Sure.
question. At the time that you started this business and at the time that he started to do his cartoons, were they acceptable and were they did they have a message? You know, I know that a lot of the cartoons seem to have some sort of story that they wanted to tell. And I'm curious whether you know about that.
Do you mean the Warner Brothers cartoons? Yeah, whether there was some kind of message that they were trying to.
Yeah.
The message that they were trying to get across was humor. They wanted to help people laugh. And they often said, Friz Freleng, one of the other directors, and Chuck often said if they could make themselves laugh, they thought they could probably make other people laugh. And that was really their goal. They never tried to make any kind of social message or anything like that. That was not their goal. Many people have tried to impose that onto their cartoons, but that was not their goal at all. I think they just wanted to have fun with many different opportunities, and they tried to approach their stories with a lot of variety.
Mhm.
in order to explore ways of making people laugh and finding humor. But despite many people trying to read very deep messages into it, they really weren't trying to do that.
Mark, did you know that it's Bugs Bunny's 50th birthday?
Yeah, I remember you told me that recently. Yep.
That's right.
Amazing.
Linda, isn't that amazing? It's the 50th birthday of Bugs Bunny. Everybody loved Bugs Bunny. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, we used to go to the movies, and the first thing that we saw were cartoons, and they were your father's. Now, why is it today that those kinds of things are not as popular as they were then? I mean, why, from your standpoint? Because what a wonderful way to laugh and what a wonderful way to have a good time and a nice thing, and not be on the computer reading a cartoon or watching a cartoon is what's going on today. I'm curious what your thoughts about that are.
The question, would you repeat the question? I kind of got lost thinking about it.
What are your thoughts about why today everybody's doing everything on the computer when they had an opportunity to watch cartoons, which are so funny and so amazing? That's what I want to know. I want to know what your feelings about the way that things are being done today as opposed to the way they were when you were a kid.
Well, the cartoons that they made in those days, of course, were part of a package that the studios sold to the theaters, through the theaters. And there was a package of a feature and a cartoon and a travel log and a newsreel. And the theaters had to take the whole package. And so the length of those cartoons and the content of those cartoons was described pretty much by what the studios wanted to sell. Also, of course, they were selling records. One of the reasons they were called Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies was because they were selling Warner Brothers songs, which were featured in the cartoons. But the difference, I mean, things have progressed, but the fact is that a lot of people are still watching those cartoons on their computers
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
and on their
On-
phone.
On
And
YouTube, on reruns, on Cartoon Networks, and it's funny. Earlier, Susan mentioned the 50th anniversary, and I want to tell you how important that is to me in my lifetime. Well, first of all, I'm a little jealous that your resume says Chuck Jones worked for me. I would love to have something like that on my resume. Let's get that out of the way. But I have to tell you that my best friend for years, almost 50 years, Alan Levy and I loved and quoted Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck all the time. And I did see an interview where you said your favorite cartoon was Robin Hood Daffy. And
yes,
there's
it
a
is.
line in that my friend and I always said if we insulted each other, if we didn't want to acknowledge it was funny, we would just look at each other and say, "Ha ha, it is to laugh." And that's from Robin Hood Daffy. So then when you said that in an interview that I saw, I mean, that just brought back memories because this is well over 45 years ago that we did this. So what's it like to watch that episode and know that your father was a major part of that type of magic?
Well, I feel very privileged, to have been in his life and I don't know where the 50 years came from. Bugs Bunny was in his first picture in 1940.
Oh.
So it's 80 years rather than
Oh.
50 years.
I saw this in the newspaper, Linda.
Yeah.
That's why I'm telling you this. But that's even more wonderful.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't on Looney Tunes at that time. Who knows? But as if
Yeah.
50 wasn't good
Yeah.
enough, Linda
Yeah.
wants you to know it was 80.
It was 80, right? It was July. It was actually very close to my fourth birthday, third birthday. My birthday is July 25th, and his birthday is July 27th,
Oh boy.
and 1940, and I was born in 37. So he's one of my brothers. My few brothers. But getting back to your question, Mark, and by the way, I really like the way you spell your name.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's the proper way to spell it.
That's what I'm saying.
I have a stepson who spells his name that way, which is the proper way.
Correct.
But I am. I don't know what else to say other than that I feel so privileged. It was such a wonderful lifetime to be part of his life, and he made me a part of his life so often and so much, and we had a great relationship from the time I was born to the time he died. So couldn't have been better. I can't imagine anyone claiming to have a better relationship with their father than I do.
Outstanding. Excellent.
Let me ask you something, Linda.
Sure.
I have a lot of questions, but this is one of the questions that I think is so important, and that is, what was your father's relationship with Disney? I know your father, did he own all of his cartoons, or actually he didn't, did he?
No, he didn't. Warner Brothers owned and still owns all of those cartoons that were made at Looney Tunes. His relationship with Disney, it started with admiration. He thought Disney was a genius and was certainly inspired by Disney and all the things that went before. Chuck worked at Warner Brothers, and then for a very brief time he worked at Disney after he left Warner Brothers. He worked there for I think 6 weeks or something. Worked on Sleeping Beauty briefly, and as you probably know, he decided after a few weeks that he needed a change, and he went into Disney's office and said, "Walt, I'm going to need to leave." And Walt said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, there's only one job around here that's worth having, and you have it."
if he knew then what you
Yeah.
know now, would he have owned his own cartoons?
Oh, he never had a chance. That wasn't an opportunity. And of course, he does own the company owns the cartoons that he made with his own company, the Chuck Jones Enterprises. So he owns the Kiplings and Crickets, and he has the Grinch. He doesn't own the How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but he does get a royalty from that. So.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's good.
That's
That was what that and my business were what made it possible for him to do what he wanted to do for the last 10 or 15 years of his life.
What are your favorite drawings, Linda? Because there must be, I mean, out of so many cartoons and so many animations that he did, there must be one that you thought was the best.
The best drawing or the best cartoon?
The best cartoon and the best drawing.
Well, as Mark said, my favorite cartoon is Robin Hood Daffy, but drawings, it would be very, very difficult for me to choose a drawing. I'm looking over my shoulder. That's our little 10-pound dog.
I saw him sneak in earlier.
His name is Little Man. He's a very sweet dog.
Oh, okay.
But there are thousands and thousands and thousands of drawings, and so I would find it impossible to choose a favorite drawing.
That makes sense.
He made a lot of drawings for me, for my birthdays, for different times in my life, and so I have a number of those. Unfortunately, I don't have them all. I really don't know what happened to them all. Like many of us who can't remember what happened to our baseball card collection or something.
Oh, really? You'd be a multimillionaire
Oh,
now
yes.
if you had those. There's no
I
question
would.
about it. You know, Mark, Linda has a gallery in San Diego, and all of his, I guess you would call it all the cartoons on. How do you refer to the things that are in your gallery? Do you call them paintings? Do you call them animations? What do you have in the gallery that people would love to see?
We have a gallery in San Diego, and we have one in Albuquerque or in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but neither one of them is open right now. Because what my company sells are a variety of animation art, not only from Chuck, but from Disney and other studios, artists. And we have original production art from some of the cartoons. We also have one of the things that we started were signed limited editions. My father, when we discovered many years ago that Warner Brothers had burned almost all of their production cells, they wanted the warehouses where those were being stored for accounting things. So they took a bulldozer and took all of those old cells out and put them in a big hole in the ground and burned them. So unlike Disney, who preserved all of their cells, Warner Brothers felt that they were worthless, and so we had very few, almost none, because Chuck didn't take any home. There were some of the people that worked there that did take quite a lot home, but still millions of them were burned. So when he found that out, and we were looking around for replacements, and he said, "No problem, I'll just draw whatever you need." And so we started the signed limited editions, which Disney had not thought of at that time, and because Chuck was the actual director and was willing to make those drawings, we were in a great position to have a unique product. And so much of our business, particularly in the first 10 or 15 years, which we started in the 70s, was based on those limited editions. And we have several books now that we have available that picture all of those limited editions that we did during those years.
And in the Chuck Jones Museum, I think it's also known as the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity. I just love that wording. So what are the various programs that help you continue your mission to, and this is from your website, inspire continued excellence in art? I think it's a big deal.
Oh, Mark, we are so happy that you brought that up.
Great.
We are reaching into, and of course we've had to change a lot of things since the pandemic began, because we had so many in-person opportunities to bring Chuck's vision of creativity into schools and the Scouts and so many other places that we were so gratified to be able to do that. And so we've made transitions onto virtual opportunities to bring the things into various communities, and I'm sure you see them on the, and I hope people will go and look at the Center for Creativity, Chuck Jones Center for Creativity website, because we have had some amazing experiences with people on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum. One of our board members, he and his wife are very much involved with that community because their son is part of it, and they have introduced us and brought the opportunity so that we can have that audience, and we have, as I said, been very involved with the Girl Scouts. We have had a marvelous experience with what I guess I would call older people like me.
that kind of, I want to know, and I think this is something that art does for me, music does for me, dancing does for me. It transforms me in ways I can't even describe, Linda. Don't you feel that that's what it does for the autistic kids, for the older people, for everybody? It just, think about Alzheimer's for a minute. When people with Alzheimer's take a look at a painting, suddenly they come to life. And I bet that your art does that for them. Your father's art does that for them.
Well, we've been working with Hoag Hospital, the neurology department, and the wonderful, very well-known neurologist that we've been working for, his name escapes me at the moment, but it is listed on the website, and we've been working with him with people with different kinds of dementia, because you're absolutely right, that's exactly what happens, especially when they start to work together. They'll be sitting around a table together. We present an idea for them to look into their creativity, and oh my God, it happens. They work together. They bring their own excitement to the table, and their brains start to work, according to the doctor. They start to work better. And they take that into the rest of their life as well, and with their caregivers or their families, and so it's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing just to participate in, but it's also therapeutic, and that happens at all ages.
Right.
We even in the autistic groups that we've had children or people of all ages who have not liked to be with people at all. They don't want to touch anyone. They don't want to be in the same room. They don't want to be within arm's length. And we've had groups that not only become willing to work side by side, but they'll even work together. And their parents and their caregivers are so amazed at what can happen when they're introduced to the idea of creativity in their lives. It isn't only art, but art is certainly a big part of it because of Chuck.
Yeah.
Well, you also mentioned, Linda, that's great accomplishments that you're doing, but it's also great that you made the shift to virtual. So I can't tell you how amazing your dad's work has been during this pandemic. Thanks to television, the internet, YouTube, all those things. I've again watched many of his cartoons, as so many people have with binge watching. How do you think he would have reacted to the struggles that we're actually dealing with today?
That's a really interesting question, Mark. And you know, whenever I'm asked how Chuck would react to something, it's very hard for me to channel him.
Right.
I was almost always surprised by the way he looked at everything differently than I would have, or that other people would have.
Right.
And I think I know he would have been very gratified that people are finding solace or distraction or whatever it is that people are finding with his work. But how I've thought about what he might have brought to this situation that we're all in, and I really don't know. I wish he was here to share it with us, because I think it would have been very enlightening. I know he would have been devastated by much that's going on. But
Where do you think that your father would try to do some different things based upon the way our world is and the way children learn? Is there something about what he would do now as opposed to what he did 80 years ago?
Well, first of all, as you well know, he never made the cartoons for children. He had no interest in children, really.
Wow.
I mean, he liked children. He
Yeah.
liked children, but the cartoons were not made for children. And the cartoons were all made for adults. And had they been able to, if they hadn't had the censorship that they had in those days, they would not have been as appropriate for children as they have been. They would have brought all kinds of other things into those cartoons if they could have. So it's I mean, it wasn't that he didn't like children, but he just wasn't working for the purpose of children. And in fact, when he became the vice president in charge of children's programming for ABC, which he did, one of the things that he brought to that was the idea that I don't know whether he was, I believe he was quoting, I can't remember who, but one of the great New York Times literature critics, that the value of any children's literature is that it can be read with enjoyment by adults, and so he, all his life, especially after he started making the Crickets and Kiplings, which were adapted from books. His whole point was, I'm making these so that adults will enjoy them, and if children like them too, that's wonderful. But I don't think that would have changed, and his admiration for many of the people who are now making particularly feature films was enormous. John Lasseter and Chris from Blue Sky. Those people brought the enjoyment for adults. These are good films. They aren't children's films. They're good films, and children and adults can enjoy them. And so I don't think he would have changed anything about the way he approached filmmaking or writing.
Well, that's amazing, because I realized when I got older, I said to my friend, how come I'm laughing so much more at some of these cartoons? Because the jokes make sense. What the heck was so funny? It was the way somebody said it. One time someone said, I'd like to see something nice in a pair of bedroom slippers. And the guy said, confidentially, so would I. When you're 12 years old, you don't get that joke. The way the guy said it made us laugh. Now I'm older, I said, what 10-year-old would ever understand what the heck that meant? So it was really incredible. But Linda, where can people learn more about you, the organization, your dad, the Linda Jones Enterprises, and of course, the museum? Where can we learn more about that?
Well, the primary place right now is chuckjonescenter.org. We really want everyone to go there. And from there, they can find links to many of our other things. They can Google Linda Jones Enterprises and find opportunities to look at our art. We certainly would love to have people see what we are offering. And the primary thing for us always is to encourage creativity. That's where we come from, and that's where you come from.
Yeah, that's the
Both of
educational
you.
aspect. Absolutely.
Both of you. Yeah.
Well, what great stuff. Linda, Susan, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, sharing all your dad's stories, your stories. So thank you so much on behalf of Susan, myself, and the viewers. So I just want to thank you again. To the viewers, remember to reach out to us on social media. Look for Great Success on Facebook and Twitter. We would love to hear from you. And you can also find me, Mark Hoberman, on LinkedIn. Again, thanks to Linda Jones for being with us today. What an honor. And Susan, as always, thank you. And viewers, don't forget to tune in to our next podcast. This is Mark Hoberman thanking you for watching the podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, on the Great Success Education channel. I usually say have a great day, but I'm going to say that's all, folks, but I can't do the impersonation. I'm going to say that. That's all, folks. Thanks so much.
Right.
Great to see you.
Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Linda. It's a
Thank you.
pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for listening to Lighting the Educational Flame with Mark Hoberman. To contact Mark, email him at info@gradesuccess.com.